Hi, everybody. It's Kristen. Thanks for bearing with me throughout this presentation. This is about the seventh way I've tried to record this. Something's wrong with my microphone, so my voice keeps sounding like I'm a kidnapper. Tried a couple different apps, not having any luck, so I'm having to use my phone to record my Google Slide presentation. So I apologize for not being able to make it this weekend. I'm in a wedding and have had lots going on with that. So here we go. What I chose to look at was balanced literacy. And then within balanced literacy, I'm really wanting to focus in on the weak links. This is through conversations I've had with peers, self-reflection on my own writing, and overall just some takeaways from this class and where we could have more effective practices and following different literacy plans. So starting with that, I have my wish. And my wish would be for a better understanding of balanced literacy at the building level. It is supposed to be a district initiative that we have. And while I do see some strong components that are being used, teachers all work really hard to provide exemplars. We work hard to have rubrics, unpack the standards, all of that good stuff. But it doesn't always work out. And we could really use some more training around it. So one of the areas that I want to talk about too would be just being able to see it in all contents. It's almost like every time you hear the word literacy, you automatically think of an English class. But in reality, content literacy means having the best knowledge and the skills to teach within your area and the expectations that you have. My wish would be to see that time would be invested in training and in teachers. I know time's a four-letter word in education, but I really think that that is what it's going to take in order to take care of those weak links within the balanced literacy program. Looking at the why and the who, in other words, the stakeholders. In no particular order, teachers, administration, students, and coaches. And by coaches, I mean instructional coaches. I included these people because often the whole idea of balanced literacy and moving to the shared reading and the shared writing, well, we kind of shut down after modeling. We model and we try to give the kids good exemplars so they see what it is we're asking of them. But unfortunately, there's somehow a gap that happens between the modeling and the I do, then we do, then you do, that ends up causing frustrations by teachers and students. And by teachers, we are frustrated because we are not seeing students produce the work we feel they're capable of. We feel that we're doing strong instruction, and students are frustrated because they feel the opposite. They feel, yeah, I know what I'm supposed to do, but I don't know how to get there. I understand the final product, but I'm not understanding the steps to get to that point. That's the feedback that I received from both teachers and students. And what ends up happening, and this is kind of where the coaches and the admin come in, was they're noticing that the product and the mastery are lacking. We are not a school of rigor per se, but that is something that comes up in our professional development. And there's questions as to whether or not is our teaching rigorous enough. Well, if we're not doing the model correctly, then are we really going to have that product and the mastery then that we would like to see? So that's just some of the feedback I got from the stakeholders. Next, we have, we have the whole where to start. This is kind of my, you are here and this is our goal. One of the things that we need to recognize is that we do need to do more learning. It's an ever evolving educational practice, and it can be very hard to be vulnerable and identify the gaps. It's hard to say, yes, I do a good job of modeling. Yes, I do a good job of giving exemplars and mentor texts and having rubrics for kids. But if they don't even know how to start, then something's missing. And that's really hard to be that vulnerable and to admit that there's a gap in your teaching instruction. So thinking about more designing, more sitting down and actually digging into the lesson plans themselves. Where do you need more direction? Do you need explicit training around what it looks like to have shared reading and shared writing happening in your classroom? Do you need help with building in more of time for partner work and peer work? What should you let go? Oftentimes we get personally attached to things because we've put time and effort into it and it makes sense. However, is it necessary? Is it good for the students? Is it completion of a task for completion's sake, or is there a link to the learning target? It can be hard to let things go as much as it can be to be vulnerable. Next, on the where to start, you need to figure out who is doing and using balanced literacy. What does it look like when it's being done and when it's being done well? How can you take what's out there and really turn it into something that's going to work for you? And then once you get to the point where you are able to start working on a balanced literacy framework to guide your instruction within your classroom, then there needs to be an evaluation of the progress. Peeps observe. What I mean by that is you are having your peers and people within your building come watch you, give you feedback. That can be instructional coaches. It could be another teacher. You could have a student coming in and just saying, hey, I want you to look for these things today, and get feedback from a student's perspective. But you have to be observable. And then you need to refine it. What will it look like in your classroom? What will it look like when you get there? And some of that comes from reaching out and finding resources that show you how it can best look. So we've done the where to start in my nice little roadmap. Okay, whoops. Sorry, did the wrong thing again. So the last and not least portion would be the action plan. You'll notice I have the words grace and faith up on the top. Those are terms we throw around at our school, but I actually do believe in the concept of grace and faith. You have to have grace. You have to be willing to grant people grace and say, it's okay that you made this attempt and it didn't work out. You just need to have faith then that you are doing the most purposeful thing that you can do, and that this is the best thing for your students, and you need to continue to work through that. So how are we actually going to do this? What is the action plan? Well, Rome wasn't built in a day, so we have to start training and starting small and then growing as needed. That can look like bringing in administrators, instructional coaches, and teachers, and kind of maybe having that first go round of people that are being trained and having intense time training around a balanced literacy framework. And then they could come back and take that into their respective PLCs and then hope to work through and develop with that. Each year it would need to be a priority. As a person who has been in my district for, this is my 5th year, one thing I have struggled with is when they reference PD that was done 6, 7, 8 years ago, and I'm not aware of what it is they're talking about. As new teachers come in, and everyone needs to continue to have training around it every year. You can't just drop it in and say you're going to do it and then never continue to bring it up moving forward. So start small with the training, bring people in, and then continue on and grow as needed with more and more people being exposed to it. The next component on the action steps would be rich resources. And this means not just articles or blogs, but actually studying lesson plans, finding examples and exemplars and models for the teachers, and go out and observe other classrooms. And that means that next step, collaborate within and outside of the district. I feel often we get kind of closed off into a mentality of the Ankeny way. That's where I'm at. If there are other districts that are being successful and are finding the use of balanced literacy, why not go out and see how they're doing it and dig in with them and try to figure out what can you take back for best practices. The next component then would be creating a lesson planning process. A template would be awesome for every single teacher to have, that they would be required to follow. And not so much as in like a have to turn into admin check on kind of thing, but as a roadmap for them when they are working to create the balanced literacy model within their classroom. 5 on there says model classroom and protected and vulnerable. I would love to see a model classroom where risks could be taken and the teaching method might possibly look a bit different. And then peers could come in and observe, admin could come in and observe and see what it's like when it's being fully integrated and offer that as almost like a training moment for others. Time to work. Time is a 4-letter word, and it is one we never have enough of. It is hard to reinvent a unit. It is hard to reinvent a pacing guide, especially when people have designed those and they have been tied to it. It might have to be summer days that teachers are paid to come in and do, to actually spend the time to go in and rework their units. Because once the school year starts, and if you're trying to do something new and it's not working and it's not coming easily, it's going to be second nature to fall back on what you've always done. And it's not necessarily like someone's intentionally trying to be a bad teacher. It could just be about survival. So having that time to work, recognizing that teachers need that and protecting it or honoring it through a financial stipend seems like a smart idea. Number 7, time to measure success. This isn't going to happen overnight, and we have to be diligent and we have to hold ourselves accountable that, again, just because something doesn't work immediately doesn't mean that it will not work eventually. You can kind of see here what I did is I said it won't happen overnight. Like I mentioned before, it's continual and it's collaborative. It's going to take more than one person on board. It's going to take a continual evaluation, and it's going to take patience. It's going to take faith that you are doing the very best possible thing for your classroom and your students, and knowing that it might not show up in a week or 2 weeks, but eventually you're going to become the vehicle in which it does work, and that eventually is going to then in turn benefit your students. So thank you for your patience in viewing this, and hopefully it turns out okay. I'm anxious to hear the feedback or any questions you have for me. Sorry I could not be there. Good luck with everybody. I hope all of your presentations went well, which I'm sure they did. You guys have a good rest of the weekend. Thank you.